lovers, settle in because we've got a story. I'm Nell.
And I'm Rose, and today we're bringing you the tea.
Across era.
So we're a lot closer to the mics today.
Do-do-do.
See if that makes a difference.
Did you watch any of the Grammys?
No.
Me neither. But I did watch the video of Miley presenting an award. I love Miley so much. And she just, her voice, man.
She
sounds
does
like she's
have a
been
great
smoking
voice.
since she was in the womb. Speaking of the Grammys, so I texted you this morning about Kendrick Lamar winning for a diss track.
Which is funny because this morning was actually the first time I'd ever heard that song because of that text. And you know what? Actually, props. I enjoyed myself.
There's a reason, as I've said in a previous episode, that he won a Pulitzer.
Yeah. Good writing is good writing. And I've said for a long time that hip-hop and rap are where we keep our modern poetry.
Of course,
because we don't do poetry the same way that previous generations have. But
No.
we haven't stopped the instinct for writing poetry.
No, I like a lot of rap music. I like it a lot.
Same.
I do like Kendrick Lamar quite a bit. Did I tell you this? So, yeah, I did. When he went up on stage and was accepting his award, again, I didn't see this as it was happening. I saw the video later. Somebody pointed out that he was wearing what we in America, at least, call a Canadian tuxedo.
Denim
Which
from
is,
head to toe.
Yeah, all denim. It's just super funny because the object of his diss song is from Canada. But don't worry, Canadians, we love you.
Absolutely. Do not take that as a pejorative sign. Canadian tuxedos are gorgeous.
We love them. You know what else is happening right now?
Mm.
It's February!
February! Oh, this week has been the longest year.
Yeah, January was like 4 months long. It was wild.
Yeah, best put away.
Okay, so my job is... How do I describe my job? My job is not in federally funded research, but I do work with the administrative side of grants, and some of them are federal. So, like, my work has been
a bit of disarray.
Yeah. Everything's just like, business as usual as I run by like a chicken with my head cut off.
A lot of taped on smiles and deeply buried panic, and I don't think that you're the only person experiencing that.
Oh, no, not at all. My poor doctors, my gosh. Yeah.
Well, it's an unknown landscape.
And I like February. Here in the U.S. and I think in Canada, February's Black History Month. I've got quite a few friends with birthdays and anniversaries and all kinds of things happening in February.
Yeah, we have several family members with February birthdays too. February,
celebrating Black History Month. So I'm obviously not Black. I am pasty white. But I don't know if I should say Black American, African American, Black. So I'm just going to say what all the sources I found said. And I think it varies.
It does evolve. I think that what we're both struggling with right now is how to be good allies without becoming an unintentional and irritating part of the problem.
Yeah.
If there are notes in that regard, we're very open to it.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things in February was always all of the like really cool Black creators that they would highlight at Target, and you could buy like fun stuff. And I like fun stuff, you guys.
Especially
like,
finding new creators.
Yeah, it's so fun. Now that Target is doing away with their DEI incentives, and I haven't stepped foot in a Target since they said that, which is unfortunate. I enjoy Target. But look, here's the thing. I enjoy Black History Month. And you've probably figured out by now, I enjoy food. I'm like super food motivated. And another fun thing you get during these fun, apparently DEI months, I will have more to say about that in a moment, is I love the food, right? So like in college, I went to every single like random organization potluck.
Absolutely.
Every single one on campus. So I imagine my shock and surprise when I went right to the White House's website and found the statement on Black History Month. I don't even want to bring it up because I want to give people ideas. But like, I was really happy to see it was still there. However, so here's a quote from it. Black Americans have been among our country's most consequential leaders. Absolutely. This is a side note. So I've been doing a lot of homework. Like, I missed homework in my first week of school. Wouldn't you know it?
Student life.
Yeah, but then apparently a lot of people did, so he let us make it all up. And honestly, each piece of it probably took me like 4 hours. It was rough. ended up spending an unfortunate amount of time reading executive orders lately.
I think we've all upticked on that.
Well, it's because my class is about federalism, which, don't quote me on this, as I'm in my final semester of my master's program, but I think that means, like, how the local and federal governments work together under a federal system. I don't know.
An interesting time to be taking that class.
You have no idea.
Oh
my
gosh.
teacher is not, he's a citizen, obviously, and he's here with all the amazingly way smarter than I'm ever going to be credentials. He's the one where I learned Excel in his class.
Nice.
And that's definitely been the most useful thing I've gotten out of this whole entire program. But he wasn't, like, born in America. And everything he assigns us, like the articles we read, are so hilariously scathing. So I've spent time reading executive orders because of this class. Executive orders are quite flowery, and they're, like, very fancy, like the birth of a royal kind of fancy, you know what I'm saying?
Well, all of that language refers to very carefully negotiated situations in this, like, gigantic language puzzle.
Yeah.
Like, every piece, every syllable is there for real reasons.
Yep. Anyways, that was my little sidetrack into executive orders. So I felt like there's so much to talk about with Mardi Gras. I could do more than the episode I did, which was such a high overview. And so I was like, wait. And I jumped right into researching what, like, the African American contribution to Mardi Gras was. So let's jump in. One of the things about Mardi Gras that is very recognizable, maybe not to people who've never been, but Mardi Gras Indians. And we touched on them a little bit.
And at the last time that you were talking about it, it made me think of New Year's in York, which is in northern England. So we were there for New Year's, and it confused the hell out of me that there were so many people walking around in headdresses. You know, being from New Mexico, that's just so bad taboo.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have real reasons for wearing that, you just leave that alone.
We also don't call the people who live here Indians unless they're from India.
Exactly.
But
it's a whole mess
that's a
of
whole
things.
thing.
I was really surprised.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was not my space, so I was just sort of observing it, but it always really confused me. But it makes more sense with the Mardi Gras connection, because it's like the big crowd celebration, and I guarantee that's probably why that was happening.
Yeah,
it just sewed up a really confusing moment in my life.
Right? Okay, well, awesome. So, the Mardi Gras Indians, traditionally, it's African American communities, and when they go out in the parades, they usually walk in the parades, they wear these, like, big, beautiful, intricate, hand-sewn costumes that resemble very much like Native American wear. So the Mardi Gras Indians, historically, they were formed in the late 19th century by African American men as a way to honor and connect with the indigenous Native American tribes who had helped enslaved Africans escape. So, and their costumes they make, they're like about the art. They're called suits, and they blend in, like, African, Native American, and African American things. They're very cool. They're very beautiful, and there'll be a picture posted on the sources page of a costume I found. Their roots are very deep in Mardi Gras, but also, unfortunately, with the city's history of slavery and segregation, but also resilience.
You can't erase history. As unpalatable as the moments may be, they have to be talked about. Good, bad, everything is part of the experience, and it has to inform what you're doing moving forward.
I found this quote on their website. Like, you can just look up, like, the Mardi Gras Indians website, and it's one of their former presidents of the New Orleans Mardi Gras Indian Council, and he said, Mardi Gras Indians are secretive because in the old days, only certain people participated in masking, you know, like the wearing of a mask of sorts. In the late 19th century, you know, it's a time when people are dealing with segregation, aftermath of slavery, and the Mardi Gras Indians are said to have drawn their inspiration from the help they received from other communities and their own communities. Having these, like, the big, beautiful suits, it was a way to kind of, like, say, hey, we're here, we're a presence. You know, Mardi Gras is not just for white people. They've got beads, feathers, sequins, Some of them can weigh up to 100 pounds. They usually do the full style Native American headdress, and obviously it's super labor intensive, and it's something that for a lot of people was passed down to them from previous generations.
Oh, yeah.
They do organize themselves into tribes. The tribes have a big chief, and each tribe has their own style, which kind of reminds me of how the crews of Mardi Gras, they each have their own thing.
Yeah.
This is not a crew though, so. But some of the more well-known tribes are the wild Tchoupitoulas. And Tchoupitoulas is a really hard word to say. It starts with a T and a C. And I
am super impressed.
I only know it because my friend who used to live in New Orleans, I think she's like up east now. Whenever I would visit her, she would be like, pronounce this. Because whenever she would visit me, I would point at the Spanish road signs.
I was going to say, we do that too.
And say, pronounce this.
Yeah.
They have a street that is called Calliope, not Calliope.
Is it actually pronounced that?
Yes.
What? I was like, Calliope. I know.
Nope.
No.
That was one of the first ones. She said, pronounce this. And I said,
so
Calliope.
irritating.
And she was like, yeah, it's Calliope here.
I can't. Specifics are not important, but a portion of my job requires me to say the word Lano day in and day out instead of Yano, which is the actual pronunciation, and it kills me. It just kills me.
Yep. When I worked at the bank, someone had called in, and I don't remember exactly what their last name was, but let's say it was like what I would say is Gallegos.
Yeah.
It has 2 L's. It's a Spanish name, Gallegos.
Right.
And I said, I looked at the screen and her name pops up or whatever, and I'm like, thank you, Miss Gallegos. And she goes, my name's Gallegos.
And it's like, yeah, it's your name. You do get to pick, but really?
Yeah, it was kind of wild. So yeah, wild Tchoupitoulas, the Golden Eagles, the Creole Osceolas, the Black Feathers, and then, of course, the big chief is the tribe leader, and they're usually the focal point of, like, the tribe as they're marching or walking in a parade. The masking thing I mentioned earlier, historically, sometimes African Americans had to hide their identities, and sometimes they would wear, like, masks. And every time I say masks, I think of a Halloween mask, which
I think
probably wasn't. I mean, I don't think of those. But I mean, you could even like wear a veil, comb your hair in front of your face, something. Anything can be
a
mask.
Feature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because otherwise, they could be subject to discrimination, violence.
Like in a lot of eras, participation in a public activity that isn't appreciated by everybody in charge can make identity a problem.
Exactly. Today, masking is more of like a big artistic expression, cultural statement kind of thing. Yeah. On Mardi Gras Day, the Mardi Gras Indian tribes come together in the streets to showcase, like, their costumes and their dance or whatever they're going to do, and they call them battles. Yes.
Like a costume battle. I love that.
They're very performative, very creative, dancing, and dancing in ways that obviously show off your amazing outfit is very important.
That's so cool.
Yeah, lots of pageantry, lots of drumming and dancing. It's a big celebration. The music, obviously, is a huge part of the culture of the Mardi Gras Indians and New Orleans. The music is very traditional New Orleans jazz, brass, gospel combo of awesomeness. For some, the Mardi Gras Indians, the tradition isn't just about the celebration, but it also has like a more spiritual and cultural meaning. The making of the suits is, it's like a ritual.
That's a community activity. You can't do something like that by yourself.
So and it brings everyone together. I like that. Today, the Mardi Gras Indians, they're still out doing their Mardi Gras celebrations. Some tribes do year-round parades because there's parades for everything in New Orleans. Like, if you show up on St. Patrick's Day, there's parades. There's always parades.
And I do always think of it as just Mardi Gras, but you're right.
No, they're always there. But also, the tradition has spread beyond Mardi Gras. The Mardi Gras Indians will be found in other activities now, in the same way that, like, a second line was traditionally after the funeral, maybe if you were too poor or the wrong color to attend the funeral of someone, and you could do a second line. And now a second line, you can like have a second line at your wedding.
It's its own thing.
So the wild Tchoupitoulas tribe was founded by the Neville brothers.
Neville
Don't
Brothers?
give me that look. Hang
What?
on.
Oh.
As she calls herself a musician.
I should have known. All right, now I have run into this so often in my life. So yes, I'm a musician. Yes, I was a music major. Yes, my degrees are in music.
They're not in pop.
It's not in pop. Like every single musical related question I ever get asked, they're like, "Oh, aren't you a music major?" I'm like, "Yeah, 10th century. Talk to me about monks."
So the Wild Chabatulas, they're founded by the Neville brothers, who are 4 brothers from New Orleans and very big musicians, obviously. One of the most famous big chiefs comes from the Wild Magnolia tribe. His name was Bo Dallas. He was really influential in bringing the Mardi Gras Indian culture to a much wider audience through his music.
Nice.
All right, moving on to number 2. Social aid and pleasure clubs. Not what it sounds like when I say pleasure. That's a different kind of New Orleans thing. So these were organizations formed by Black New Orleanians to promote socializing, mutual aid, and basically cultural identity. The clubs would organize parades and second line processions during Mardi Gras. Second line, here's a brief actual factual definition for you. The second line is basically where the brass bands and the parade goers kind of like join in and go through the streets. You know, you follow them kind of in a line, a messy dance line with music. The second line's, of course, very deeply rooted in Black history and very culturally significant to New Orleans. Some of the roots go back to Caribbean traditions, which when I read that made sense. Because I remember being in the Bahamas, and one of the things we did, we went to this place where they made these like enormous headdresses, and they were for like parades and things, and they gave us ginger beer, and my kid was young and thought it was beer, and I let her believe it, probably still to this day.
Wink.
So the reason the second lines are most closely associated with the social aid and pleasure clubs was, again, the mutual support. And one of the things they really wanted to do was offer support in terms of funeral arrangements and health care and services that were unavailable or just inaccessible because of segregation.
Yeah.
And so the term second line comes from the tradition of parades and processes that are organized by the clubs, or any club really. The first line would be like the main parade, and then the second line is everyone who follows it. Okay. And it's joyful, and it's dancing, and it's fun. So the second line really grew out of a combination of funerals and parades. In New Orleans, one of the traditions they have is a jazz funeral. Sign me up.
Oh, I love that. Is such a cool tradition, and the music is beautiful.
Right. It's solemn mourning music. It's uplifting music. You have like a very like sober part of the funeral, and then like a very uplifting part, and the second line comes, and the mourners like are like, okay, now we're going to celebrate their life and honor the deceased. Yeah, very fun.
It's a beautiful tradition. You know what I want at my funeral?
Paper clips.
Yes, but in terms of music,
the
top song that gets played at funerals in the UK is Always Look on the Bright Side of Life from Life of Brian, which, if you have not heard that,
I love that. It's hilarious.
It is beautiful and amazing, and that is my wish. Always look on the bright side of life.
Right. Got that, and the paper clips.
Treat yourself. Yes, and the paper clips. That's purely about something who. It's a different conversation.
So basically the juxtaposition of like mourning and celebration, that is considered a very important reflection of the African American experience. Joy and sorrow intertwined. So key elements, if you're going to have a second line, you've got to have a brass band, obviously. They should be playing New Orleans jazz, which is going to be jazz, blues, gospel, and funk, kind of a fun combination. You have to be dancing and, in time with the music.
Dancing is required.
Yeah, you have to do that. It's a celebration. So you have to have those 3 things. So the social aid and pleasure clubs are the ones who are typically responsible for the organization of a second line, like the Treme Sidewalk Steppers, what a fun name, and the Morning Star Benevolent Association. They're usually responsible for organizing the parade routes. The parade route often is going to weave through different neighborhoods and communities because it's symbolic in bringing people together from different parts of the city to celebrate. That's so cool. It's like a social event. Mm-hmm. And if it's just passing by, you can join. That's mostly. Cool. I would. Let's be real. Also, a lot of fashion, a lot of symbolism in that fashion. Mm-hmm. You're going to see a lot of like handkerchiefs or parasols to be waved as people dance.
Oh, I'm always down for a parasol.
Right? It's so much fun. Mm-hmm. So the trend here in all of this, I think, is like resilience, celebration of justice, looking back at, the history and what has happened. And a lot of this came together for more community reasons that have now also been widened to be like part of the overall New Orleans culture.
That's very cool.
Second lanes are also a symbol of social activism. Like you'll find them in political protests and public demonstrations down there. One of the most well-known social aid and pleasure clubs is the Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club. Okay. Founded in 1909, the club's parade is super famous for their Zulu king. That's usually going to be like a very prominent African-American figure in the community. Mm-hmm. Even though they started off as like more of a social aid and type of place, they began participating in Mardi Gras in the 20s, and that really kind of sealed their association with Mardi Gras. It really helped elevate its status. It's a cultural institution. And their first appearance was 1909, but they were part of an informal mock parade, which had been set up with the purpose of breaking racial boundaries. The Black community had been excluded from a lot of traditional Mardi Gras crews, and that includes like the balls, the parties, everything that comes with it. Mm-hmm. So they throw the usual things, the necklaces and the cups and the trinkets and coconuts. And not just any coconuts, but painted coconuts.
Coconuts are heavy for throwing.
Right? AKA golden nuggets. So that is a big tradition in Mardi Gras. You're going to get the shoes from, the other crew. You're going to get the coconuts from Zulu, if you're lucky. But the primary concern they had was mutual aid and assistance, because their community was underserved, excluded from many things. And so they wanted to offer a sense of solidarity, mutual support, and community, especially with healthcare, funerals, and life events.
The thing about mutual aid societies is that the things about them that are most visible are the celebrations, the parties. The celebration is what we see, but it's not what they're about. Yeah. What actually happens on day-to-day basis is people assisting each other, humans helping humans when they don't have access to resources that they should or that they need. And someone else steps up and says, I have the organizational skill for this.
Yeah. I come from a family that feeds you.
Yeah.
All the time. And so if someone, even if we suspect someone isn't getting fed, or more likely, if we think someone's going to be alone on Thanksgiving, they're not.
Exactly.
They're going to be with us and with our 87 million side dishes. Anywho, so sometimes I think about, why don't we help each other out more?
It's not the emphasis right now. And you just have to make it your personal emphasis and hope that it spreads.
Yeah, you don't have to make everyone a casserole, but we could try being nicer to each other. I would like that a lot.
Do the things that are in front of you, because that's really all you can do with any kind of reliability.
Yeah.
Help someone out today.
You should. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.